From the archons to organizations to places, the weight of names and their meanings, as well as the expectations one might have when hearing them, have been of key importance since the inception of Genshin Impact, but especially so in the freshly released nation of Natlan. A tradition and cultural rite that bears more weight in Natlan than arguably any other nation, the concept of ancient names has struck a chord with me since Natlan's first teaser and long after completing the 5.0 Archon quest. Hello, or long time no see, it's Bear, your resident lore keeper. Just as a disclaimer, this video will have spoilers for Act 1 and Act 2 of the Natlan Archon quest, as well as references to the 4.8 summer event, Summertide Scales and Tales. With all of that out of the way, get comfy and sit down with me while we discuss ancient names, what they are, their significance in Natlan and Teyvat overall, as well as what the existence of them could mean moving forward as we progress through the Archon quest. We first learned of ancient names nearly a month ago now, when Hoyoverse released the version 5.0 trailer, Flowers Resplendent on the Sun-Scorched Sojourn. We know that ancient names are forged into obsidian and are passed down generation by generation. We also know that if you are defeated during battle with the Abyss, your ancient name is destroyed and unable to be inherited once again. But before I get ahead of myself with ancient names and their importance, what exactly are ancient names? Rather than being a second name or an alias similar to the archons like Venti and Barbados, or a distinction between an organization and a general term, similar to the Abyss Order and the Abyss, which, yes, are two different things, ancient names are more specifically a title that is passed down generation by generation to citizens of Natlan. Each ancient name is carved into obsidian, a resource that Natlan is rich in that has multiple cultural significances and can even connect one to the plane between the living and the dead. Each ancient name is associated with the heroic deeds and cultural advancements by its forebearers, and with each individual it's passed along to, it preserves not only their personal story and legacy, but also their tribes.
Ancient names allow us to preserve the stories of the past, but they're also much more than that. Think of an ancient name almost like an heirloom passed down from generation to generation. Do you have your stone on you, Kachina?
Of course! Here, take a look. Whoa, that black stone looks so mysterious. It's like there's something shiny inside it.
But Bear, you might be asking, how does someone even get an ancient name? Do they just wake up one day and poof, it's there? Can I simply walk down to the ancient name store and hope I find one I like? Do I have to face trials and tribulations over and over again until I'm deemed worthy enough by the Pyro Archon to receive an ancient name? All of these are good guesses, but actually, it's not that complicated. Each tribe within Natlan has something called a Wyob, which is an entity that resides within the Night Kingdom that's capable of seeing the past, present, and future for their respective tribe, and is frequently called upon each tribe for blessings and protection. When they deem someone worthy, they'll bestow that member of their tribe with their ancient name. Though the criteria for what qualifies an individual to inherit an ancient name is unknown, I'm sure it varies on a case-by-case basis.
This is the most cherished and most sacred item in our tribe. It symbolizes the Wyob that protects us and grants us blessings. Is that a god of some sort? Sort of. We believe the Wyob dwell beneath the earth, while the Pyro Archon hails from above. We hold regular gatherings here, actually. Our chief recounts and interprets dreams relating to our Wyob to decipher its will. The Wyob know the past and can foresee the future. Isn't that extraordinary?
Alternatively, the Pyro Archon can just commission an ancient name to be carved into obsidian and inherited by an individual, which was shown at the end of Act 2 of the Archon quest, when Malvika stated that she would be commissioning Shilonen of the Nanatskayan tribe to create one for the Traveler after their heroic deeds. Understandably, bearing an ancient name and the legacy it holds must be a difficult position to be in, despite it possibly being seen as otherwise to those in Natlan without an ancient name. This pressure is reflected constantly within Kachina throughout the entire Archon quest. It causes her to question her identity, doubt herself, and even question her worth. Kachina's ancient name, Utabiti, means resilience in Swahili, and while we don't know who the original bearer of her ancient name is, the expectations placed upon her, both by herself and others throughout the pilgrimage, aren't able to be denied. Despite it never being a rule, so to say, about living up to the legacy of the previous bearers of your ancient name, in Natlan there is an obvious divide in attitude between those with and without ancient names. And for someone as young and kind-hearted as Kachina, it can be deadly.
Wyob decide who is deserving of inheriting an ancient name. Once a successor is selected, the name becomes theirs to bear, and their deeds are then preserved within it. As time passes, ancient names come to represent the heroic deeds of more and more bearers. and their value becomes even more profound. In turn, the accomplishments preserved within it serve as an inspiration for the next generation of successors.
The significance of having an ancient name in Natlan seems to be held in even higher regard than owning a vision.
Oh, great heavens!
After all, there are those with visions without ancient names, and there are those with ancient names without visions. Oddly enough, however, ancient names don't grant their bearer any special powers, abilities, or gifts at all, unless you count the expectations, constantly watching eyes, and overwhelming pressure not to disappoint your tribe placed upon you as a gift. But when you think about it, it makes sense why anyone would want to do the best they could, to live up to their predecessors, to keep those heroic deeds going, if all you have is your hard work, and there's no one to blame or lift up but yourself. Kachina put it best earlier on in the Archon quest by asking,
Think of it this way. If you become a hero because the heavens granted you strength, are your triumphs earned or given?
your fate is entirely in your hands. Which sounds a little familiar, doesn't it? Recently, or maybe not so recently for some of you, we explored quite a few storylines in Genshin Impact in which a character was given a name and a role to live up to, or rather than live up to refuse the original bearer's legacy and decide their own fate. The most recent examples I can think of with this revolving theme are Duran in the 4.8 Summer Tag Scales and Tales event, as well as both Sino and Sethos in Sino's Part 2 story quest released in patch 4.6, which I'll have a video about coming out soon. Do you also remember that beating heart on Dragonspine? Yeah, that's Duran's. Now, if you remember, Duran was a shadow dragon created by one of the witches in the Hexen Circle that goes by the name of Rhindaughter, who coincidentally also created Albedo.
I'm raising a son. Of all the children I had, he's the only one left. But I suppose that still makes me a mother.
During the Cataclysm 500 years ago, Duran invaded Mondstadt and was defeated by the Animo sovereign dragon, Dvalin. His corpse then fell onto the mountain Vindagnir, that we now know as Dragonspine. However, due to the abyssal power flowing through his toxic blood, there have been lasting effects on the mountain to this day. His toxic blood seeped into Dragonspine's ley lines and subsequently reviving the frost-bearing tree that had been destroyed aeons ago by Celestia's nail, which we now know is meant to suppress the influence of the abyss across Teyvat. But Duran's intention wasn't to destroy Mondstadt or harm the citizens of the nation at all. He was actually an extremely gentle soul whose main goal was to befriend those within Mondstadt and create peaceful relations with them. He even perceived his invasion of Mondstadt to be a very, very long dream, in which he, Barbados, Dvalin, and the citizens of Mondstadt were all dancing and singing along with him, the very picture of peace and community he craved so badly. And maybe Duran was doomed from the start. Created by a woman blind to her own hubris, she left the failed experiment and source of the toxicity within his blood, the source of the abyssal power within him, primordial albedo in his body, to fester and rot before his invasion.
My story. Yes, I should have known. Master's failed specimen in the dragon's belly. This is where the story truly begins. If we switched places, if you were the survivor, then as the abandoned experiment, the failure of the primordial human project, I'd want to replace you too. I would replicate your appearance, study your alchemy, and create miraculous life forms to divert your attention. I would wait for the right moment, then dispose of you and the Traveler, the sole person to have known your secret. And then, I could finally experience the joy of being brought into the world.
This exact legacy is reflected in the dragon during the 4.8 summer event, Summer Tag Scales and Tales, where the main antagonist is a dragon that has been terrorizing the little toy citizens of Simulanka.
It's the dragon! The dragon that destroyed the titanium mines! Help! Help!
Soldiers, pick up your weapons! Destroy that monster!
And while there are a large number of references, foreshadowing, and themes in the summer event that match up to the recurring and possible themes within the Natlan Archon and World quests, we'll be focusing on the dragons for now. Towards the end of the summer event, we find that the dragon within Simulanka was created by yet another witch of the Hexen Circle who goes by the codename M, or Anders' daughter. Intentionally modeled and named after the real-life Duran of Teyvat, Anders' daughter created him with the hopes that he would be able to live the life that Duran had so badly wanted and believed himself to have even during his quite tragic death.
Are you sure you want to create this child, Em? Even after what I told you about his fate. He will be abandoned by his creator, and eventually...
I know, B. You've told me already. That sad story with the disappointing ending. It's what happened in the real world, isn't it? But that's exactly why I want to change things. In a different world, his story can have a happier ending. That child, his heart is so full of love.
I understand, Anya. But know that if you give him that name, his fate in Simulanka is destined to parallel that of his real-world namesake.
But there's still a chance, right? Maybe it's a shot in the dark, but I have to try. He deserves a better life. Although, he might need the help of others when the time comes.
All right, my dear. The choice is yours. Since you're so persistent, let me tell you a secret.
Unfortunately, against her wishes, Simulanka's dragon was subject to the same fate Duran was. Overcome with grief at the loss of his mother, Simulanka's dragon terrorized the toy citizens of Simulanka by stealing the stars in their night sky and harming anyone who came too close, despite his wishes to also commune with the toy soldiers and origami animals of the storybook.
I'm sorry, my child. Unlike my friends, I don't have a long time to live. All said and done, the story of my life will be shorter than the fairy tales in this book. So I will have to leave your side, I'm afraid. It's okay. It's okay. Once I'm gone, I will become a star in Simulanka and watch over you from above. If you ever feel lonely, just look up towards the sky.
Thankfully, towards the conclusion of the event, through the power of friendship and the Wanderer seeing himself reflected in the dragon, we're able to see the truth of the situation.
Nobody can define who you are, or deny the true feelings of your heart. Now remember your name. Duran. It's all right now.
And Simulanka's shadow dragon is renamed Mini Duran. Similar to the Wyob of Natlan, Anders' daughter knowingly and intentionally named her version of Duran the way that she did, despite being aware of the fate that he would face. But more than that, she hoped and believed that he would be able to reject that legacy, choose his own destiny, and achieve the dreams that Duran couldn't. In this way, the Wyob are the same. Towards the end of Act 2 of the Archon Quest, the Wyob of Kachina's tribe assures her that despite bestowing upon her the ancient name of Utabiti, it was never meant for her to live up to, but rather add to her own accomplishments and deeds that can only be done by her and her indomitable spirit.
I was going to ask why you bestowed an ancient name upon someone like me, but it's okay. I'll keep searching within myself for the answer. I'll never stop trying to improve my strength, One day, I'll live up to the hero you saw in me.
You are already an outstanding child in my eyes, Kachina. No matter what happens.
Huh?
You are all my most beloved children. It has always been my honor to protect and nurture you. Your ancient name is just that. A name. Much like your parents chose to name you Kachina, I also gave you a name, but it need not define you. Focus on who you want to be. You are already worthy of your name. Now, you need only devote yourself to becoming a better you. The story of your ancient name is for you to continue. Just like your parents, my love for you will never change. No matter what the future holds.
One important note about ancient names, though, is that they're not permanent. Or, well, that is to say that they're not indestructible. At the moment, there's only one known way that an ancient name can be destroyed, and that's through death. Now, despite being the land of war, Natlan actually doesn't have very many interpersonal conflicts between tribes or other nations. The war against the Abyss is, at the present moment, and has been for the last 500 years, Natlan's main conflict.
Wait, so if the pilgrimage is like a national sporting competition, then what are the Night Warden Wars?
The former is a battle of skill. The latter is a real war. A war against our eternal enemy, the Abyss.
So they're here too. Well, wait a second. You're saying the prize for winning the pilgrimage is the chance to go to war?
When a competitor with an ancient name wins the pilgrimage, they are sent to the Night Warden Wars, in which they will fight off the Abyss and return momentary peace to Natlan and farm contending fire to fuel Natlan's sacred flame. Winning the pilgrimage and fighting in the Night Warden Wars is seen as a huge accomplishment and privilege to all competitors, and it's their main ambition for winning the competition.
The purpose of the pilgrimage is not only to select strong warriors, but also to collect contending fire from the battles. This is the fire that fuels the sacred flame. Natlan is only safe from the invasion of the Abyss, while the sacred flame burns eternal.
Oh, so there's another purpose for the tournament.
That was the initial purpose, actually. Every participant, whether they win or lose, contributes to the defense of our nation. That's what makes it such an honor to take part.
Exactly right, Mr. Kanich. Contending fire can only be produced in battles between people of Natlan.
But all great things come at a price. While it isn't common for members of the Night Warden Wars party to fall in battle, and there are measures in place to ensure their safe return home through the Ode of Resurrection, that safe return home is never guaranteed. The Ode of Resurrection is a ceremony in which the Pyro Archon will search the Night Kingdom, the plane between the life and death, for those with the ancient names that fall in battle against the Abyss and revive them on one condition. That condition simply being victory. If the team sent to fight the Night Warden Wars loses the battle completely, if every member falls, they're unable to be resurrected and their ancient names are destroyed forever. Death, unfortunately, is not the worst possible fate for an individual with an ancient name. After all, as I stated earlier, if they fall in battle but their team still wins, they can be revived. All they have to do is not die, right? Well, yes, but it's not always that simple, and alongside those teams that have lost and perished, so have their ancient names and the legacies they held. When an ancient name is destroyed, the legacy of not only the most recent bearer, but also the previous and original bearers is destroyed and over time completely forgotten. These ancient names will be lost to the Abyss and no longer be able to be inherited by any future generations within Natlan. But there is one character within Genshin Impact that not only had an ancient name that was destroyed, but whose legacy still somehow also lives on, that being Tinoch. Tinoch was a warrior within Natlan who was excommunicated from all 6 tribes, therefore not having one to call home. Despite not having a specific tribe he belonged to, Tinoch was still held in high regard throughout Natlan and each of its tribes. Enough so that he was able to gather an ally from each tribe, even his old rival Tupac, and fought the Abyss over 500 years ago when he decided that the current tribe leaders within Natlan were willfully ignorant to the dangers that the Abyss posed to Natlan. Though he perished at the hands of the Abyss, he was unable to be revived through the Ode of Resurrection due to already having lost his ancient name. Assumedly when one of his companions had petitioned for his excommunication within Natlan's tribes years prior. Tenoch is an interesting character with many contradictions towards what we know now of the Pilgrimage and the Night Warden Wars. To start, we know that those without ancient names aren't to be sent to fight the Abyss in the now Night Warden Wars. Was this a decision and rule that came as a result of Tenoch's untimely and unfortunate death? And we also know that while it isn't explicitly stated but heavily implied, those whose ancient name is destroyed have their legacy wiped from Natlan's history as their stories and heroic deeds are no longer passed down. While unconfirmed, it wouldn't be surprising to me if the deeds of ancient name bearers are passed down through word of mouth, as prior to the colonization of many cultures and nations that Natlan is based off of, word of mouth was the primary mode of passing down history until the preservation of their cultures were threatened to be wiped out completely. Now, not to deviate too much from the previous topic, but as I was playing through the Natlan Archon quest, and even way before it was released, when we first began learning of Natlan and learning characters' names, there was something about the system and cultures in place that felt familiar to me, that I didn't realize until the release of information of Olorun. For those that don't know and perhaps aren't familiar, Olorun is not only the name of an Orisha within the Yoruba religion of Santeria, but rather he's considered to be the ruler of the heavens of the Yoruba. He is, for lack of a better term, the supreme deity of the Yoruba pantheon. Santeria is a religion that has been practiced within my family for generations, and while we don't exactly have the same cultural concept of ancient names, there are those who practice the religion that go through a week and a year-long ceremony in which they are given a name after being crowned or initiated as a santo, or someone who can now act as a medium for those to communicate with the orishas or perform ceremonies, somewhat similar to what we know as the Wayob within Genshin Impact. Now, when the slaves left Africa, there were a total of 401 deities within the Yoruba pantheon, but as of present day, there are currently an estimated amount of 20 santos or deities left. And again, similar to how the Wayob bestow ancient names upon those within the tribes of Natlan, the Orishas choose you when you begin to practice Santeria. And even further, there are 2 specific Orishas that will claim you and act as your divine parents when you are initiated or crowned. Each santo controls a certain part of nature. Yemaya, who is mentioned by Mavuika quite a few times in the Archon quest, controls the tides in the sea, while Chango controls lightning and thunder, etc., etc. Elegua, my Orisha, is referred to as the owner of caminos, or roads and paths. He's often depicted as a trickster and portrayed both as someone who is simultaneously very young and mischievous, and old and wise, in which he encompasses both the various phases and stages of life and fate. The main belief within Santeria is that you can achieve la vida alegre, which is to mean the good life, with hard work and good health. Rather than expecting our Orishas to simply provide us with the things we want most in life, material or immaterial, it is up to us to achieve our wishes through hard work and the good health that we pray and work towards. Nothing but rain falls from heaven, which is similar to the ideals that those with ancient names hold within Natlan. Again, if you become a hero because the heavens granted you strength, is it earned or given? And while becoming a hero isn't the common goal of Santeria, I like to think that taking care of yourself, bettering yourself, and the drive to help others within the community and outside of the community, being our own form of a hero. There are many beautiful aspects of Santeria that I've grown to love and appreciate even more as I grow older, but those were just some similarities I wanted to share. And with that, thank you for watching. The concept of ancient names within Natlan is one that I've become strangely attached to and interested in as soon as it was revealed, and my experience with Santeria has only added to that. Ancient names are still something I want to research a ton more, and I hope we learn more about them and how they work within the world of Genshin Impact. I'd love to hear your thoughts and theories as well, and lastly, thank you so much for sticking around and watching until the end. Watching and sharing these videos helps me out more than you know, so it's always greatly appreciated. But that's enough yapping for me, and I'll see you in the next video.